So you want to know how to use plastic as a temporary base for making mosaics? Well, you're in the right place. I'm Helen Miles and I'm here to teach you all the tips and tricks you need to make mosaics. Let's start off by considering why you would want to use plastic as a temporary base. Well, I use it for two reasons. One is when I have leftover thinset and leftover little shards of smalty, I just make these, I don't know what you call them, shapes. I make these shapes on plastic. So I make, every now and again, I make them. And eventually I imagine that I'll have enough that I can make a kind of mosaic out of them. I can just use them as large tesserae. The other reason I use plastic as a temporary base is so that I can set the completed mosaic wherever I want. So if I was making this mosaic onto a permanent base, obviously, let's say I wanted to put it onto a square and I wanted it to be in the middle of the square. Once you've applied the tile adhesive to the board in order to set your tesserae into it, it's very difficult to see where the middle of the board is. However, if I've got this independent piece like this, I can easily spread the tile adhesive over the whole board and place it exactly where I want. Now let's consider your options for temporary plastic bases. It's not rocket science. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. This is an old plastic bag. It happens to be clear, but it could be, a coloured plastic bag. As long as you can make it flat and reasonably smooth, then it's fine as a temporary base. This is sticky back plastic or contact paper, which you buy to line, to cover books and to line drawers. And that's for something slightly different, but I'll explain later in the video. Bits of perspex are fantastic. You can just buy squares like this or shapes like this. It's not a square. So they're fantastic, and I have a larger one here. I don't know where I got this from, but it's just perfect because it can be used again and again. And I even have a plastic paint palette. Again, absolutely perfect, nice smooth surface. So there's lots of options. So yeah, there's no need to go out and buy fancy stuff. You probably already have something that you can use. I'm going to be making this design, which is obviously of a mouth, and I'm using the contact paper, the sticky back plastic, to just decide which tesserae I'm going to use and where I'm going to lay them. So it's a very simple design, and I put it underneath the sticky back plastic, and I'm just putting the tesserae onto it as a temporary base. So I often use sticky back plastic just to help me work out the placement. Slightly, well, it's not cheating, but if you felt confident, you could obviously do it straight into the tile adhesive. So I've got a mixture of glass and ceramic, some bits of old pottery as well. I thought I'd use the backs of these old plates because I love the mottling, the sort of crackling on it. It's a shame not to use the patterns on them, but sometimes you have to bite the bullet and use your favourite pieces because otherwise you just end up waiting and never using them. I've also got bits of shell that I'm going to use for the teeth with the pottery, and I've got a tray here of mixed darks, which I'll use for the inside of the mouth. There we have it, a very simple little design. And if you're watching that time lapse really closely, you can see that I'm not necessarily following the design as I drew it. And I think that's a really important thing when you're following any kind of design, is that you let the tesserae and the working of the mosaic dictate where you lay your pieces, rather than the lines that you've drawn. I mean, obviously that doesn't apply to something that you want to be strictly realistic, but in almost all work it does apply. And the other thing I should explain to those of you who are not used to using thinset, the reason why I'm using thinset for these examples, and therefore why I'm using plastic as a temporary base, is that my tesserae are uneven depth. So because I'm using ceramic and shell and glass and a bit of slate, they're all different heights. So therefore I can't set it flat with glue because it would be impossible to grout. And with the thinset method, the thinset comes up from underneath and holds the tesserae in place, which you'll see as this video continues. Now I'm going to transfer the design from the sticky paper onto this normal plastic paper. And as you can see, I'm just using an old bit of plastic that I've used for another project and just turned it over. You don't have to be all fancy, you don't have to get nice plastic, just use anything. I can actually clean this off, and I probably will for the project after this, but for now it's completely fine. As for the sticky back plastic or the contact paper, I've got a rather good one here, which seems to hold. Shall I test it? Yeah. Oh no, just lost one piece there. Anyway, the old contact paper I had didn't work nearly as well, but it's good stuff. And I think I'll use two different grout colours, not grout, I mean thinset tile adhesive. I want to use black in here so that it will make the teeth kind of pop out and kind of merge together, the darks in the middle. But I think I'll use a kind of pinky red here so that it emphasises the lips. So I have a separate video on mixing tile adhesive, in case you're wondering. You saw a little cheat there when I was mixing up the pink tile adhesive, where I added dry tile adhesive thinset to the already mixed pink, just to make it slightly, the pink was too wet, so I needed to dry it out a bit. And as you probably know, you're supposed to only add wet to wet and dry to dry. But I always feel it doesn't really matter if you're in the process of doing it or have just done it. Anyway, just to point that out. So now I'm going to do the inside, the teeth and the inside of the mouth. I don't want this excess tile adhesive. As I explained, I'm changing the colour. So I'm going to remove it, I am removing it, but not right up to the edge of the tesserae which are laid. Yeah, you can either use the straight end of the spatula. Every spatula has a straight edge and a pointed one, to pull it away like that. or you can do what I was just doing and pull it away with the sharp end. But as I said, not right up to the edge yet. Maybe a bit closer. All right, and now I'm definitely using the pointy end, a nice clean tip, and I'm holding the spatula at a 45-degree angle and pushing the tile adhesive in while pulling out. So I'm pushing it up. So I'm creating a nice straight edge. I'll just do this side. 45-degree angle, push, and then pull. So if you tried to remove the tile adhesive right up to the edge with the straight edge, it would simply pull the tesserae out of place while the tile adhesive is still wet. So there we go, almost done. Making a mosaic this way is not a perfect science. So when you transfer the tesserae over from your contact paper into the tile adhesive, you often find, just because of the gaps and the tile adhesive itself, the surface of it is obviously soft, the pieces are not placed exactly as they were in your prep. So here on the left, I found that when I reached the end of the lip, I didn't have room for this tapering piece, which I think is important. So I've just taken a few pieces off, and I'm working back to get the equivalent taper as I have on the other side. So don't worry if some things like this happen, it's just part of the process. And I will finish by showing you how to take the piece off the temporary plastic base. You need one of these long pizza palette knives, I think they're called. You know, they go under the pizza to shake it off its base. So it's exactly the same thing. You just slide it under your mosaic, and away it comes. And you'll have these little raggedy edges which you can smooth off. If you like this video and you'd like to see more, then please subscribe below.